Welcome to my channel. Try to hear the latest story.
I walked into my mother's living room that Sunday afternoon, holding my 7-year-old son Tommy's hand, expecting another routine family dinner. The familiar scent of roasted chicken drifted from the kitchen while Patricia bustled around setting the table. Tommy wandered toward the prominent wall display that dominated the entire space, 19 carefully arranged photographs showcasing 3 generations of family memories. His innocent voice cut through the comfortable silence as he studied each frame intently. "Dad, why aren't we in any of these pictures?" My stomach dropped as I looked at the wall with fresh eyes, seeing what my son saw clearly for the first time. Every photo featured my brother Derek, his wife Amanda, their twin daughters, cousins, aunts, uncles, and grandparents, but not a single image included Tommy and me, despite my paying Patricia's $1,500 monthly mortgage for the past 3 years. Patricia paused in her dinner preparations, turning toward us with that practiced smile I knew too well. The expression never quite reached her eyes when she looked at me, carrying an undertone of measured patience rather than genuine warmth. "We only put up pictures of the core family, sweetie," she told Tommy with artificial sweetness, patting his head dismissively. Those words hit me like a physical blow, each syllable landing with devastating precision. Core family. After everything I had sacrificed, every financial struggle I had endured to keep her house from foreclosure, we were still outsiders looking in. My mind raced backward through 3 years of monthly bank transfers, each one representing overtime hours and missed opportunities with my son. $1,500 every single month, faithfully sent on the first of each month without fail or complaint. That money could have funded Tommy's college savings account, paid for family vacations we never took, or covered the dental work I had been postponing. Instead, it disappeared into Patricia's mortgage payments while she maintained her comfortable retirement lifestyle. The memories came flooding back with painful clarity. Derek's wedding reception 2 years ago cost me another $4,000 because Patricia insisted the family needed to contribute equally for her eldest son's special day. Christmas celebrations annually drained my checking account by another $2,000 because I always provided the gifts, decorations, and holiday feast, while everyone else simply showed up to enjoy the festivities. Emergency home repairs, appliance replacements, property tax supplements. When Patricia claimed financial hardship, all came from my wallet without recognition or appreciation. Tommy continued examining the photo gallery, his small fingers tracing the frames, while his confusion deepened. Wedding photos showcased Derek and Amanda's elaborate ceremony, vacation snapshots, captured family trips to national parks and beach resorts. Birthday celebrations featured elaborate parties with extended relatives gathered around decorated tables. Every major milestone, every joyful occasion, every treasured memory displayed prominently excluded us completely. The systematic nature of our omission became increasingly apparent as I studied the arrangement with growing awareness. Patricia returned to her kitchen tasks, humming softly, as though her casual dismissal of our family status was perfectly reasonable. The sound grated against my nerves like fingernails on a chalkboard. How could she possibly think this arrangement was acceptable? After everything I had done to support her financially, the cognitive dissonance between her words and actions created a surreal atmosphere that made me question my own perceptions of reality. "But we come here every Sunday," Tommy said quietly, his 7-year-old logic struggling to process the contradiction between our regular presence and complete photographic absence. His innocent observation highlighted the absurdity of the situation more effectively than any angry confrontation could have managed. We were good enough to provide consistent financial support and weekly attendance, but apparently not worthy of family documentation or lasting recognition. The front door opened with familiar enthusiasm, as Derek arrived with his crew, immediately transforming the atmosphere from awkward tension to celebratory warmth. Amanda entered first carrying a store-bought package of chocolate chip cookies, while announcing their arrival with theatrical flair. The twin girls, Sarah and Emma, bounded inside with boundless 8-year-old energy, immediately receiving enthusiastic hugs and excited exclamations from Patricia about how much they had grown since last week. Derek followed behind his family, wearing his usual confident smile and weekend casual attire that somehow always looked more expensive than my work clothes. His greeting to Patricia involved warm embraces and genuine laughter, the kind of natural affection I rarely witnessed directed toward Tommy and me. Amanda received similar treatment, with Patricia praising her cookie contribution as though she had spent hours baking from scratch rather than stopping at the grocery store. The contrast in reception became painfully obvious as Patricia lavished attention on Derek's family, while Tommy and I remained standing awkwardly near the photo wall. No enthusiastic greetings, no excited comments about Tommy's growth or achievements, no genuine interest in our week's activities. We were treated like obligatory guests rather than cherished family members, tolerated rather than celebrated. "Look what Uncle Derek brought," Patricia announced, displaying the store-bought cookies as though they were precious treasures worthy of special recognition. The irony was not lost on me that these simple cookies received more appreciation and acknowledgement than my 3 years of mortgage payments. Derek basked in the praise, accepting credit for his thoughtful contribution, while remaining completely oblivious to my growing resentment. I felt Tommy's small hand slip into mine as he sensed the emotional undercurrent swirling around us. His perceptive nature had always amazed me. Even at 7 years old, he could detect when situations felt uncomfortable or unsafe. The protective instinct that defined my existence as a single father kicked into overdrive as I watched him process this family dynamic that excluded and diminished us both. The dinner announcement came with carefully orchestrated seating arrangements that further emphasized our secondary status. Derek's family occupied the preferred spots around Patricia's dining table, while Tommy and I were directed to the smaller side positions typically reserved for children or less important guests. Even the physical placement reinforced the hierarchy Patricia had established in her mind regarding family importance and value. As we took our assigned seats, I made a decision that would change everything. The years of quiet acceptance and grateful submission were ending right here, right now. My son deserved better than this treatment, and I deserved acknowledgement for my sacrifices and contributions. The time had come to address this toxic dynamic directly, regardless of the consequences. "Actually, before we eat," I said, standing up from my designated chair with newfound resolve, "I think we need to have a conversation about family contributions and recognition." My voice carried a strength I had not felt in years, fueled by righteous anger and protective determination. The room fell silent as everyone turned to look at me, surprised by my unexpected assertion of presence and voice. Derek's comfortable smile faltered as he sensed the shift in my demeanor, though he quickly recovered with his usual dismissive attitude. "What are you talking about, Billy?" he asked, settling into his chair with practiced nonchalance. "Can't this wait until after dinner? Mom worked hard preparing this meal for us." The irony of his comment about hard work was not lost on me. Considering Patricia's ability to prepare elaborate Sunday dinners was directly funded by my monthly contributions. "Actually, Derek, I think we need to discuss how exactly Mom affords to work so hard on these meals," I replied, keeping my voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through my system. Patricia immediately attempted to redirect the conversation with nervous laughter and bustling activity around the dinner table. "Boys, please, let's not discuss money at the table. It's not appropriate dinner conversation, especially with the children present." Her discomfort was palpable as she realized this conversation might venture into territory she preferred to keep private. Tommy remained quietly observant beside me, his young mind processing the adult dynamics he could sense but not fully understand. I placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder while maintaining eye contact with Derek across the table. I think it's time the children understood exactly how this household operates financially. Derek's defensive posture became more pronounced as he straightened in his chair. Look, Billy, if you're having money problems, you should have said something earlier. We're family, we help each other out when times get tough. His words carried condescending undertones that suggested he viewed my contributions as desperate pleas for assistance rather than generous family support. Help each other out, I repeated, allowing genuine incredulity to color my voice. Derek, I've been paying Mom's entire mortgage for 3 years. $1,500 every single month, plus holiday expenses, plus your wedding reception costs, plus emergency repairs when the water heater died last winter. Amanda shifted uncomfortably in her seat, suddenly finding great interest in arranging her napkin, while avoiding direct eye contact. The twins continued eating quietly, sensing tension but not understanding the financial implications of the adult conversation surrounding them. Derek's confident facade began cracking as the specific numbers entered the discussion. I visit Mom more often than you do, he said defensively. I bring the girls over multiple times each week, help with household tasks, provide emotional support when she needs company. Family contribution isn't just about money, Billy. You're absolutely right, I agreed, nodding thoughtfully. Family contribution involves many different elements, so I'm curious about something that's been bothering me. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking application, preparing to address the issue that had been gnawing at me for months. Patricia sensed the direction of my inquiry and attempted another deflection. Billy, sweetheart, surely this can wait until later when we can discuss things privately without involving everyone else in family business. Actually, Mom, I think everyone needs to hear this family business. I continued scrolling through my transaction history. Derek, last month, when I transferred my usual mortgage payment to Mom's account, she told me how grateful she was for your increased financial support. She mentioned how proud she was that you were stepping up to help with household expenses. Derek's face began showing signs of genuine concern as he realized where this conversation was heading. I don't know what you're implying, but I resent the suggestion that I'm not contributing to family expenses. I'm not suggesting anything, I replied calmly. I'm directly asking you to explain how Mom thinks you're providing financial support when every mortgage payment comes from my bank account. I held up my phone screen displaying months of transfer records with clear dates and amounts. The silence stretched across the dining room like a physical presence as Derek struggled to formulate a response. Amanda's discomfort became increasingly obvious as she realized her husband had been claiming credit for financial contributions he was not actually making. Tommy tugged gently at my sleeve and whispered, "Dad, are you upset with Uncle Derek?" His innocent question highlighted the family conflict that was escalating beyond normal dinner conversation dynamics. "I'm disappointed, son," I answered honestly, keeping my voice gentle for his benefit while maintaining firm eye contact with Derek. Sometimes adults need to have difficult conversations about honesty and fairness. Derek finally found his voice, though his usual confidence had been replaced with defensive anger. Fine, yes, I may have let Mom think I was contributing more than I actually am, but I deserve recognition for everything else I do for this family. I visit regularly, I help with maintenance projects, I provide grandchildren she can be proud of. The implications of his statement hit me like a physical blow. Provide grandchildren she can be proud of, I repeated slowly. What exactly does that mean, Derek? Amanda attempted to intervene with diplomatic language, clearly uncomfortable with the direction Derek's comments were taking. He didn't mean anything personal by that, Billy. Derek just meant that having multiple children creates different family dynamics. No, Amanda, I think Derek meant exactly what he said. I continued feeling my protective instincts regarding Tommy intensifying with each passing moment. Derek, are you suggesting that Tommy is somehow less worthy of grandparent pride than your daughters? Patricia finally abandoned her attempts at maintaining dinner party civility and joined the conversation directly. Boys, this arguing is completely inappropriate behavior in front of the children. Billy, you're being incredibly dramatic about a simple misunderstanding regarding financial arrangements. Dramatic. I stood up fully, my patience finally exhausted after years of quiet acceptance. Mom, I've quietly supported this household for 3 years while watching Derek take credit for my sacrifices. I've watched you exclude Tommy and me from family photos, family gatherings, family recognition of any kind. I've accepted being treated like a second-class relative while funding your comfortable retirement lifestyle. Derek also stood up, his defensive anger now transforming into aggressive confrontation. Nobody asked you to pay Mom's mortgage, Billy. You volunteered because you wanted to feel important and needed. Don't act like you're some kind of martyr because you chose to throw money at family relationships. The accusation stung because it contained just enough truth to be particularly painful. I had volunteered to help with Patricia's mortgage, motivated partly by genuine concern and partly by desperate hope for family acceptance and appreciation. Derek's ability to identify and weaponize my deepest insecurities demonstrated just how well he understood my psychological vulnerabilities. Tommy began crying quietly as the adult voices rose around him, overwhelmed by emotions he could sense, but not fully comprehend. His tears immediately shifted my priorities from confrontational anger to protective comfort as I knelt down beside his chair. "It's okay, buddy," I whispered, pulling him close while glaring at Derek over his head. "Sometimes grown-ups need to have serious conversations about treating people fairly." Patricia seized the moment to employ emotional manipulation tactics, pointing at Tommy's distress as evidence of my inappropriate behavior. "Look what you've done, Billy. You've upset this precious child with your financial accusations and hostile confrontation. Is proving your point really worth traumatizing your own son?" Derek stepped closer, his physical presence clearly intended as intimidation. "You need to calm down right now and think about what's best for everyone involved. This family doesn't need your drama and manufactured crisis." I remained kneeling beside Tommy while pulling out my phone to document Derek's aggressive behavior. The device's camera captured his threatening posture and angry expression as he loomed over my son and me. "Derek, I'm recording your threatening behavior toward a 7-year-old child. Please continue explaining how I'm the problem in this family dynamic." Amanda gasped as she realized the potential consequences of Derek's actions being documented. "Derek, please sit down and let's discuss this calmly, like adults." "I'll sit down when Billy stops making wild accusations and starts acting like a reasonable family member," Derek replied, though he did step back slightly when he noticed my phone camera pointed in his direction. The combination of Tommy's tears, Derek's threats, and Patricia's manipulation tactics created a perfect storm of toxic family dynamics that had been building for years. I realized this moment would define our family relationships going forward, either toward honest resolution or permanent fracture. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, standing up while keeping Tommy close beside me. "Either this family starts acknowledging contributions honestly and treating all members with equal respect, or the people you consider core family can handle their own financial responsibilities." Patricia's expression transformed from manipulative concern to genuine panic as she realized I was serious about ending my financial support. "Billy, you can't be suggesting that you would abandon your own mother over a simple disagreement about family dynamics." "I'm not abandoning anyone, Mom," I replied firmly. "I'm simply suggesting that family members who aren't considered worthy of photos or recognition probably shouldn't be expected to provide primary financial support either." The room fell silent except for Tommy's quiet sniffling, as the full implications of my statement settled over everyone present. Derek's aggressive posture deflated slightly, as he began calculating the financial reality of losing my monthly contributions. Amanda looked between her husband and mother-in-law with growing concern about their own financial obligations. Patricia attempted one final manipulation by claiming sudden chest discomfort and reaching dramatically for her chair. "Billy, you're giving me heart palpitations with this threatening behavior. I can't believe my own son would hold money over my head like some kind of loan shark." "Nobody's holding anything over anyone's head, Mom," I responded calmly, no longer susceptible to her theatrical displays. "I'm simply pointing out that family relationships should involve mutual respect and recognition. If Tommy and I aren't core family members worthy of inclusion in family memories, then perhaps we shouldn't be expected to provide core family financial support." Tommy looked up at me with wide eyes, his tears beginning to subside as he sensed my protective determination on his behalf. "Dad, are we going to be okay?" he whispered, expressing the fundamental question that had been haunting both of us for years. "Yes, son, we're going to be just fine," I assured him, meaning every word with absolute conviction. Sometimes standing up for what's right feels scary at first, but it leads to much better outcomes in the long run. Patricia's breathing returned to normal once she realized her dramatic medical episode was not generating the desired sympathy or compliance. Derek retreated to his original position, though his eyes continued darting between my phone and my determined expression. The temporary quiet allowed me to process the magnitude of what I was attempting to change in our family structure. Amanda finally broke the silence with hesitant words that would prove more explosive than anyone anticipated. "Billy, maybe we should have included you in more family activities. I know Derek mentioned that you probably wouldn't enjoy some of the gatherings we've had recently." My attention sharpened immediately on her unintentional revelation. "What gatherings, Amanda?" I asked, though something in my stomach was already preparing for another devastating blow. Derek shot his wife a warning glare that was impossible to miss, but the damage had already been done. Amanda's face flushed as she realized she had revealed information that was apparently supposed to remain secret from Tommy and me. "Just small family get-togethers," she said weakly, attempting to minimize the significance of her admission. "Nothing major, just casual afternoon visits and birthday celebrations." Patricia jumped in quickly to provide damage control. "Billy, sweetheart, we never deliberately excluded you from anything important. We just knew how busy you are with work and single parenting responsibilities. We didn't want to burden you with constant social obligations when you have so much on your plate already." The rational explanation sounded reasonable on the surface, but something about their nervous energy suggested there was more to discover. "What specific gatherings are we talking about?" I pressed, no longer willing to accept vague explanations or convenient excuses. Derek's defensive posture returned in full force. "Look, Billy, not every family conversation requires your presence or approval. Sometimes we get together spontaneously without creating formal invitations for everyone remotely related to our family tree." Remotely related, I repeated, feeling another wave of exclusion wash over me. "Derek, I'm your brother, and Tommy is your nephew. We're hardly distant relatives requiring formal invitations to family events." Tommy had been listening quietly to this exchange, his young mind working to understand why his presence might be unwanted at family gatherings. "Dad, did we miss birthday parties?" he asked innocently, unknowingly, opening another painful wound. The question hung in the air as three adults exchanged uncomfortable glances. Amanda looked guilty, Derek appeared annoyed, and Patricia seemed to be calculating her response carefully. "Whose birthday parties, buddy?" I asked gently, though I was beginning to suspect the answer would further illustrate our systematic exclusion from family activities. "Well," Patricia began slowly. "Last month was Cousin Rachel's graduation celebration, but it was just a small afternoon gathering, nothing elaborate or formal." Graduation celebration. I felt my anger rising again as I processed this information. Rachel graduated from nursing school after 4 years of study, and there was a celebration I knew nothing about. Derek jumped back into the conversation with aggressive justification. "You were working that weekend, Billy. You always work weekends. We figured you wouldn't be able to attend even if we had mentioned it. You figured I wouldn't be able to attend without asking me directly." My voice carried growing incredulity. "Derek, you made assumptions about my availability and excluded us from a major family milestone celebration." Amanda attempted to minimize the significance again. "It really was just an afternoon barbecue in Mom's backyard. Nothing fancy, just hamburgers and cake with a few family members." "A few family members?" I repeated slowly. "How many people attended this casual afternoon gathering that didn't warrant mentioning to Tommy and me?" The silence stretched uncomfortably as they realized the numbers would reveal the true scope of our exclusion. Patricia fidgeted with her napkin while Derek stared at his plate, neither willing to answer my direct question. Tommy broke the silence with another innocent observation. "Dad, remember when you said we might see Cousin Rachel soon? Was that when she had her party without us?" His words hit like a physical blow because I remembered that exact conversation. I had mentioned to Tommy that we should visit Rachel to congratulate her on finishing nursing school, unaware that she had already celebrated with the rest of the family, while we remained completely ignorant of the occasion. 16 people attended Rachel's graduation celebration. Amanda finally admitted quietly, her voice barely audible across the dining room. 16 people. 16 family members had gathered to celebrate Rachel's achievement while Tommy and I continued our weekly visits to Patricia's house, completely unaware that major family milestones were being celebrated without our knowledge or participation. "What other celebrations have we missed?" I asked, though I was no longer sure I wanted to know the complete scope of our exclusion. Derek's patience finally snapped entirely. "Fine, Billy. You want the complete list: Uncle Frank's 70th birthday party in September, the family reunion at Lake George in August, Emma and Sarah's school play celebration dinner in October, and Cousin Michael's promotion party in November." Each event Derek listed felt like another blow to my understanding of our family relationships. Major milestones, significant celebrations, family bonding experiences that had occurred without our knowledge, while we maintained our faithful weekly visits and monthly financial contributions. Patricia attempted damage control again. "Billy, honey, we always planned to tell you about these events afterward. We just didn't want to put pressure on you to attend when we knew you had work obligations and financial stress. Financial stress that exists partly because I'm paying your mortgage while being excluded from the family I'm supporting." I replied, the irony becoming increasingly clear with each revelation. Tommy tugged at my sleeve again. "Dad, why didn't they want us at the lake reunion? I love swimming and fishing." His innocent enthusiasm for activities he had been denied participation in nearly broke my heart. Lake George family reunions had been treasured memories from my own childhood annual gatherings that created lasting bonds between cousins and strengthened family connections across generations. "Tommy loves outdoor activities and family gatherings," I said, looking directly at Patricia. "He would have been thrilled to attend a lake reunion with his cousins and extended family." Amanda's guilt became increasingly obvious as she watched Tommy's disappointed expression. "Billy, I'm really sorry about the communication problems. Maybe we can plan better inclusion for future family events." "Communication problems," Derek interjected with renewed aggression. "Amanda, don't apologize for family decisions we made for legitimate reasons. Billy has made it clear that he considers himself too good for regular family interactions." "Too good for family interactions?" I stood up again, my protective instincts flaring at Derek's distortion of reality. "Derek, I've attended every single weekly dinner for 3 years while being systematically excluded from every celebration, milestone, and special occasion." The conversation was spiraling toward complete family breakdown as years of resentment, exclusion, and financial manipulation came to the surface. Tommy continued listening with wide eyes, processing information that would change his understanding of our family relationships permanently. Patricia made one final attempt to regain control of the deteriorating situation. Billy, I think we all need to calm down and discuss this privately when emotions aren't running so high. The children shouldn't be exposed to adult conflicts about family planning and social dynamics. Actually, Mom, I think Tommy deserves to understand exactly how his family views his worth and inclusion, I replied firmly. He's been asking innocent questions about photo walls and family events, and he deserves honest answers about why we're considered outsiders despite our loyalty and contributions. Derek stepped forward again, his frustration reaching dangerous levels. Billy, you're being completely unreasonable and manipulative. This family doesn't owe you special treatment because you choose to throw money at every situation. Maw, special treatment. I laughed bitterly. Derek, I'm asking for basic inclusion and recognition, not special treatment. I'm asking to be invited to family reunions and birthday celebrations, not demanding royal treatment. The fundamental disconnect between my expectations and their behavior was becoming crystal clear. They viewed my financial contributions as voluntary offerings that created no obligations for inclusion or recognition, while I viewed them as evidence of family commitment that should generate mutual respect and consideration. Tommy looked up at me with innocent confusion. Dad, are we not wanted at family parties? His direct question cut through all the adult rationalizations and excuses, exposing the painful truth that we were indeed not wanted at family celebrations, despite being expected to provide financial support for the people who excluded us. Sometimes buddy people make mistakes about what's really important in families. I answered carefully, unwilling to damage his relationship with his grandmother and uncle, while still acknowledging the reality of our situation. The moment had arrived for decisive action rather than continued debate about past exclusions and financial arrangements. The pattern was clear, the family dynamics were established, and further discussion would only generate more pain and resentment for everyone involved. I pulled my phone back out and opened my banking application with deliberate precision, preparing to present undeniable evidence that would eliminate any possibility of continued denial or minimization. The time for emotional manipulation and convenient excuses had ended completely. Since we're having this conversation openly, I announced scrolling through 3 years of financial records, I think everyone should understand the exact scope of my family contributions. Derek immediately attempted to interrupt the documentation process. Billy, nobody needs to see your personal financial information. Keep your private banking details to yourself. Actually, Derek, since you've been taking credit for these transactions, I think transparency benefits everyone involved. I replied calmly, though my heart was racing with nervous energy about the confrontation I was initiating. Patricia shifted uncomfortably in her chair as she realized I was prepared to present specific numbers that would expose the full extent of their financial dependence on my support. Billy, sweetheart, surely we can discuss family finances privately without involving everyone in our personal business arrangements. Mom, this stopped being private business when family members started claiming credit for contributions they didn't make. I answered firmly, continuing to scroll through my transaction history. Amanda looked increasingly uncomfortable as she began to understand the implications of what I was about to reveal. If Derek had been claiming credit for significant financial contributions, their own family budget and lifestyle had been built on fundamentally dishonest foundations. Tommy remained quietly observant beside me, his 7-year-old mind struggling to understand why financial discussions were creating such emotional intensity among the adults around him. I kept one hand on his shoulder for comfort while navigating my phone with the other. Let's start with the mortgage payments. I began finding the relevant section of my banking records. January through December of last year, 12 payments of $1,500 each, totaling $18,000. Derek's confident posture began deflating as the specific numbers entered the conversation with irrefutable precision. Financial records don't lie or allow for creative interpretation of reality. January through November of this year, 11 more payments of $1,500 each, totaling $16,500 so far. I continued methodically. Patricia attempted interruption with nervous laughter. Billy, honey, we all know you've been helping with household expenses. Nobody's questioning your generosity or family commitment. Actually, Mom Derek specifically saw me question my family commitment about 10 minutes ago. I replied, maintaining my focus on the phone screen. But we're just getting started with the financial documentation. Amanda's face was growing pale as she began calculating the enormous sums of money her family had been benefiting from without her complete awareness. She had known Derek wasn't making mortgage payments, but the systematic nature and large amounts were apparently news to her. Derek's wedding reception cost $4,300 for venue rental, catering, and bar service. I continued reading from my records. Christmas celebrations for the past 3 years average of $2,000 annually for gifts, decorations, food, and entertainment. Tommy looked up at me with growing confusion. Dad, you paid for Uncle Derek's wedding party. His innocent question highlighted the absurdity of paying for celebrations while being excluded from family recognition and photos. The cognitive dissonance was staggering when presented so simply through a child's perspective. Yes, buddy, I helped make Uncle Derek's wedding celebration possible. I answered honestly, meeting Derek's increasingly defensive gaze across the table. Derek finally found his voice again, though his usual confidence had been replaced with desperate justification. You offered to help with wedding expenses, Billy. Nobody forced you to contribute to family celebrations. You're absolutely right, Derek. I agreed readily. I voluntarily contributed to family expenses because I believed we were valued family members worthy of inclusion and recognition. The past tense usage was intentional and unmistakable. Patricia caught the implication immediately and began another attempt at emotional manipulation through guilt and obligation. Billy, you can't seriously be considering abandoning your family over misunderstandings about social planning and photo arrangements, she said with practiced maternal concern. I'm not abandoning anyone, Mom, I replied steadily. I'm reevaluating family relationships based on evidence of mutual respect and appreciation. Amanda finally spoke up with a question that had been bothering her throughout the financial revelations. Billy, how much money are we talking about in total over the past 3 years? The directness of her inquiry surprised everyone, including Derek, who shot her another warning glare. But the question was legitimate and deserved an honest answer based on factual records rather than emotions or manipulation. I returned to my phone and began calculating totals from different categories of family expenses. Mortgage payments for 35 months, $52,500. Wedding and celebration costs approximately $8,000. Emergency home repairs and appliance replacements, $6,200. The silence that followed was deafening as everyone processed the magnitude of financial support I had provided while being systematically excluded from family events and recognition. $66,700 over 3 years represented a substantial portion of my income and savings. Tommy whispered quietly, Dad, that sounds like a lot of money. His innocent observation was profoundly accurate. For a single father working in middle management, those financial contributions represented enormous sacrifices in terms of personal savings, vacation opportunities, home improvements, and college fund contributions for my son. Derek's defensive anger was now mixed with what appeared to be genuine shock at the total amounts involved. Billy, I had no idea the numbers were so significant. Maybe we need to discuss more equitable family financial arrangements going forward. More equitable arrangements, I repeated slowly. Derek, equitable arrangements would involve honesty about who's making contributions and inclusion in family activities and recognition. Patricia attempted to regain control of the conversation through emotional appeals. Billy family support isn't about keeping financial scorecards and demanding recognition for every contribution. We help each other because we love each other not because we expect rewards or special treatment. Marring Parasim, special treatment. My voice rose slightly as her comment hit the exact nerve she intended to target. Mom, basic inclusion in family photos and invitations to family gatherings isn't special treatment. It's normal family behavior. Amanda was looking increasingly distressed as she processed the financial information alongside the exclusion patterns Derek and Patricia had established. Her own moral compass was apparently struggling with the ethical implications of benefiting from contributions while supporting exclusionary behavior. Derek, she said quietly, maybe Billy has legitimate concerns about family dynamics and recognition issues. Derek immediately turned his frustrated attention toward his wife. Amanda, don't let Billy's financial manipulation tactics divide our family loyalty. He's using money to create guilt and force compliance with his demands. Financial manipulation. I stood up completely, my patience finally exhausted. Derek, I've been quietly supporting this family for 3 years without demanding recognition or special treatment. I've accepted exclusion from celebrations photos and family events while continuing to provide reliable financial support. Tommy began crying again as the adult voices rose around him, overwhelmed by emotions and conflict he could sense but couldn't fully understand. His distress immediately shifted my priorities back toward protective comfort rather than confrontational resolution. I knelt down beside him again, speaking in gentle tones, while the other adults continued their heated discussion. It's okay, buddy. Sometimes grown-ups need to have serious conversations about fairness and respect. Patricia seized the moment to employ her familiar guilt tactics. Look at what your financial demands are doing to this precious child, Billy. Is proving your point worth traumatizing your son with family conflict and emotional turmoil? Actually, Mom, I replied, while comforting Tommy. I think Tommy deserves to understand that demanding respect and fair treatment isn't traumatic. It's healthy boundary setting that protects people from being taken advantage of. Derek stepped closer again, his physical presence intended to intimidate me into backing down from my position. Billy, you need to stop this manipulative behavior right now and think about what's best for everyone involved. I remained kneeling beside Tommy while pulling my phone out to document Derek's threatening behavior for the second time during our confrontation. The camera captured his aggressive posture and angry expression as he loomed over us. Derek, please continue explaining how demanding basic family inclusion and honest financial recognition constitutes manipulative behavior, I said calmly while recording his response. The combination of financial documentation and recorded evidence of aggressive behavior was shifting the power dynamic in ways that made Derek and Patricia increasingly uncomfortable. They were losing control of the narrative they had maintained for 3 years. Amanda watched her husband's behavior with growing concern, clearly uncomfortable with his intimidation tactics toward Tommy and me. Her own moral compass was apparently struggling with supporting actions that felt increasingly wrong despite her family loyalty. Maybe we should all take a break and discuss this calmly when emotions aren't running so high, she suggested diplomatically, though her tone indicated growing sympathy for my position. Actually, Amanda, I think continuing this discussion right now makes perfect sense, I replied, standing up while keeping Tommy close beside me. Because I have one more question that Derek needs to answer honestly. Derek's aggressive posture faltered slightly as he sensed another revelation coming that might further expose his deceptive behavior regarding family finances and contributions. Derek, I said, meeting his eyes directly. Exactly how much money have you told Mom you've been contributing to her mortgage and household expenses over the past 6 months? The specific time frame of my question was intentional, based on information I had gathered through careful observation of their conversations and behavior patterns during recent family gatherings. Patricia and Derek exchanged glances that confirmed my suspicion that financial misrepresentation had been occurring on a systematic basis, rather than through simple misunderstandings or communication errors. Amanda looked between her husband and mother-in-law, with growing alarm, realizing that financial honesty within her own marriage might be compromised by whatever deception Derek had been maintaining with Patricia. The moment had arrived for complete transparency about family financial arrangements and contribution patterns. The foundation of trust that should support healthy family relationships had been undermined by systematic dishonesty that affected everyone's understanding of our family dynamics. Derek's face went through a series of expressions as he realized the specific nature of my question and the implications of answering it honestly. The 6-month time frame wasn't randomly chosen. It corresponded with several conversations I had overheard, where Patricia praised Derek for his increased financial support of her household. "I don't have to justify my private financial arrangements with Mom to satisfy your interrogation tactics," Derek replied defensively, though his voice lacked the confidence that had characterized his earlier responses. Amanda's growing concern was becoming impossible to ignore as she processed the implications of Derek's evasive answer. If her husband had been misrepresenting his financial contributions to his mother, what other family financial arrangements might involve deception? Derek, Amanda said quietly. Billy asked a direct question about financial contributions. Maybe you should answer him honestly. Patricia immediately attempted to redirect the conversation away from potentially damaging revelations. Nobody needs to discuss specific financial amounts or private family arrangements. We're all adults capable of managing our own money and support systems. Actually, Mom, we do need to discuss financial arrangements when family members are claiming credit for contributions they're not making. I replied firmly, maintaining focus on accountability and transparency. Tommy remained close beside me, his young mind working to understand why financial discussions were creating such intense emotional responses from adults he trusted and loved. I decided to escalate the situation by introducing external verification rather than continuing to rely on internal family confrontation that was generating more heat than light. "You know what, I said, pulling up my contacts list. "I think we need an objective perspective on this situation. Let me call Marcus and get some legal advice about financial documentation and family support obligations." Derek's defensive posture immediately shifted to genuine alarm. "Billy, you can't be serious about involving lawyers in family financial discussions. That's completely inappropriate escalation." "Actually, Derek, I think legal consultation is perfectly appropriate when family members are potentially misrepresenting financial contributions and taking credit for money they didn't provide," I replied, already dialing Marcus's number. Patricia began showing signs of panic as she realized I was serious about introducing legal accountability into family financial arrangements that had operated without oversight or documentation for 3 years. "Billy, honey, please don't involve outsiders in our private family matters. Surely we can resolve any misunderstandings through direct communication and mutual understanding," she pleaded. Marcus answered on the 3rd ring, and I activated the speaker function so everyone could hear our conversation. "Hey, Billy, what's going on? You sound stressed." "Marcus, I'm at my mother's house with family, and I need some quick legal advice about financial documentation and potential fraud situations," I said, clearly ensuring my words were being recorded and witnessed. Derek's face went pale as he realized the serious legal implications of financial misrepresentation and potential fraud charges. What had seemed like harmless family credit claiming suddenly carried potential criminal consequences. Fraud. Marcus's voice carried immediate concern and professional alertness. "Billy, are we talking about family financial disputes or actual criminal behavior?" Amanda was staring at Derek with growing alarm as she processed the potential legal jeopardy his behavior might have created for their family. Criminal fraud charges would affect their mortgage, employment, and financial stability in devastating ways. "Marcus, I've been paying my mother's mortgage for 3 years while my brother has been claiming credit for those payments. I have complete banking documentation showing $1,500 monthly transfers from my account to hers. but she believes he's been providing the financial support. The silence from Marcus indicated he was processing the legal implications of the situation I had described. Financial fraud involving family members carried serious civil and potentially criminal consequences, depending on amounts and intent. Tommy whispered quietly, "Dad, is Uncle Derek in trouble?" His innocent question highlighted the family destruction that was unfolding as a result of years of financial deception and systematic exclusion from family activities and recognition. Not trouble, buddy, but sometimes adults need legal help to solve problems when talking doesn't work. I answered gently while maintaining eye contact with Derek across the room. Marcus returned to the conversation with professional analysis that made everyone's potential legal exposure crystal clear. "Billy, if you can document systematic misrepresentation of financial contributions, especially if someone has been taking credit for money they didn't provide, you could have grounds for civil action and potentially criminal fraud charges." Derek immediately began damage control efforts. "Marcus, this is just a family misunderstanding about credit and recognition for various types of family support. Nobody's committed fraud or engaged in criminal behavior." "Derek, is it?" Marcus's voice carried prosecutorial sharpness honed through years of legal practice. "Taking credit for financial contributions you didn't make, especially in amounts totaling tens of thousands of dollars, absolutely constitutes financial fraud under state law." Patricia's panic was now complete as she realized the potential legal consequences of the financial arrangements Derek had misrepresented to her over an extended period. "Marcus," she interjected desperately, "surely family financial misunderstandings don't rise to the level of criminal fraud. We're talking about internal family support arrangements, not business fraud or theft." "Actually, ma'am, family financial fraud is prosecuted just as seriously as business fraud," Marcus replied professionally. "The relationship between parties doesn't diminish the legal significance of financial misrepresentation, especially when substantial amounts are involved." Amanda looked like she might be sick as she processed the potential impact on their family's financial stability and Derek's professional reputation if fraud charges were pursued. "Billy Al-Sampaim," Marcus continued, "you mentioned complete banking documentation. Do you have records showing the systematic nature of these payments and any evidence of misrepresentation regarding their source?" "Complete records for 35 months of payments plus documentation of family conversations, where Derek took credit for financial support he didn't provide," I answered, still maintaining speaker mode so everyone could hear. Derek's confident facade had completely crumbled as the legal reality of his behavior became clear through Marcus's professional analysis. What had seemed like harmless family credit claiming was being redefined as systematic financial fraud. "Okay, Marcus, what are Billy's legal options for recovering money that was misrepresented to other family members?" Amanda asked quietly, apparently beginning to distance herself from Derek's actions. Her question surprised everyone, including Derek, who stared at his wife with shocked betrayal. Amanda was apparently prioritizing legal protection over family loyalty as the potential consequences became clear. If Billy can document that family members took credit for financial contributions they didn't make, especially if that misrepresentation influenced family dynamics or decision-making, he could pursue civil recovery through several legal mechanisms, Marcus explained. Patricia attempted one final emotional manipulation to avoid legal accountability. "Marcus, surely you wouldn't encourage a son to take legal action against his own mother over family financial support that was provided voluntarily and out of love?" "Ma'am, this isn't about family support obligations," Marcus replied firmly. "This is about financial fraud and misrepresentation. If someone systematically claimed credit for tens of thousands of dollars in contributions they didn't make, that's actionable regardless of family relationships." Tommy tugged at my sleeve and whispered, "Dad, are we going to be okay?" His question reminded me that legal battles and family destruction weren't my ultimate goals. I wanted acknowledgement, respect, and inclusion, not necessarily legal warfare that would traumatize my son and permanently fracture family relationships. Yes, buddy, we're going to be fine, I assured him while considering how to proceed with the legal leverage Marcus's analysis had provided. Derek finally found his voice again, though it carried desperate pleading rather than defensive anger. Billy, please don't pursue legal action against family. We can work this out through direct communication and improved family dynamics going forward. Derek improved family dynamics would require honesty about past behavior and concrete changes in future treatment. I replied, though I was beginning to see a path toward resolution that didn't involve legal warfare. Marcus sensed the potential for negotiated settlement rather than formal legal proceedings. Billy, are you interested in exploring resolution options that don't require formal legal action, or do you want me to begin preparing documentation for civil recovery? The moment had arrived for me to decide whether justice required legal destruction or whether family healing was possible through accountability and genuine change in behavior patterns. Amanda looked at Derek with disappointment and growing resolve. Derek, you need to make this right with your family before it destroys everything we've built together. Her ultimatum carried the weight of marital consequences that added additional pressure to Derek's already compromised position. Legal jeopardy was bad enough without facing potential divorce proceedings as well. Patricia was crying quietly now, her emotional manipulation tactics having been replaced by genuine distress about potential legal and family consequences of Derek's financial misrepresentation. The power dynamic had shifted completely in my favor, providing leverage to demand real change in family treatment and recognition, while offering an opportunity for healing rather than destruction. Marcus remained on speakerphone, waiting for my decision about pursuing formal legal action or exploring alternative resolution approaches that might preserve family relationships while ensuring accountability. Marcus, let me think about this and call you back, I said, sensing that the legal leverage was sufficient to force genuine behavioral change without necessarily requiring court proceedings. Billy, document everything and keep records of any resolution agreements. If informal approaches don't work, formal legal action remains available, Marcus advised before ending the call. The silence following Marcus's departure felt heavy, with potential consequences and unresolved family tensions. Derek looked genuinely frightened for the first time since our confrontation began, while Patricia continued crying quietly in her chair. Amanda broke the silence with a question directed at Derek that carried unmistakable marital ultimatum undertones. Derek, exactly how much of our family budget and lifestyle has been built on financial contributions you didn't actually make? Her inquiry suggested that Derek's misrepresentation might extend beyond claiming credit for my mortgage payments to potentially affecting their own household financial planning and decision-making. Derek's response came slowly, as though each word required careful consideration of its legal and marital implications. Amanda, I may have allowed Mom to think I was contributing more than I actually was, but our own family finances are completely separate from those arrangements. Allowed Mom to think? Amanda repeated with growing anger. Derek, you either lied about financial contributions or you didn't. There's no middle ground with something this serious. Patricia attempted to interject with damage control that might preserve Derek's marriage, while acknowledging the financial reality of our family support arrangements. Derek never explicitly claimed to be making specific payment amounts, she said weakly. He just allowed me to assume that increased family support was coming from multiple sources rather than correcting my misunderstanding. Amanda wasn't satisfied with Patricia's attempt to minimize Derek's deception. So Derek deliberately allowed you to believe he was providing financial support that actually came from Billy, and he never corrected your misunderstanding over 3 years. The systematic nature of Derek's deception was becoming increasingly clear through Amanda's questioning, and the legal implications remained significant regardless of his specific methods of misrepresentation. Tommy had been listening quietly to the adult conversation, his young mind working to process concepts of honesty, fairness, and family relationships that were more complex than typical 7-year-old concerns. "Dad," he whispered, "is it wrong when people take credit for things they didn't do?" His innocent moral clarity cut through all the adult rationalizations and legal complexities, highlighting the fundamental ethical issues that had been obscured by 3 years of systematic deception. "Yes, buddy, it's wrong when people take credit for things they didn't do," I answered honestly, meeting Derek's eyes across the room. Honesty is important in families just like everywhere else. Derek's remaining defenses finally crumbled completely as he faced the combined pressure of legal consequences, marital consequences, and moral consequences for his behavior. "Billy, I'm sorry," he said quietly, his voice carrying what sounded like genuine remorse for the first time during our confrontation. "I was wrong to take credit for your financial contributions, and I was wrong to support excluding you and Tommy from family activities." Patricia looked shocked at Derek's admission of wrongdoing, apparently expecting him to continue defending their family dynamics, rather than acknowledging systematic problems with their treatment of Tommy and me. Amanda nodded approvingly at Derek's apology, though her expression suggested that regaining her trust would require more than verbal acknowledgement of past mistakes. Derek apologies are important, but they need to be followed by concrete changes in behavior. I replied, sensing an opportunity for genuine family healing if handled carefully. Tommy looked up at me hopefully. "Dad, does this mean we can be in family pictures now?" His innocent question reminded everyone of the original issue that had triggered our entire confrontation. Systematic exclusion from family recognition, despite significant financial contributions and loyal family participation. Patricia wiped her tears and looked directly at Tommy with what appeared to be genuine grandmother affection for the first time during our visit. "Tommy, sweetheart, of course you and your daddy can be in family pictures. I'm sorry we didn't include you before," she said, her voice carrying maternal warmth that had been absent during earlier conversations. Derek nodded in agreement with Patricia's commitment. "Tommy, we want you and your dad at all family gatherings going forward. I'm sorry we made mistakes about including you in celebrations and activities." The apologies felt genuine, but I had learned through 3 years of family dynamics that good intentions needed to be supported by concrete behavioral changes and accountability mechanisms. "I appreciate the apologies," I said carefully, "but we need to discuss specific changes in family financial arrangements and inclusion practices going forward." Amanda supported my position with her own demands for accountability and transparency. "Derek, if you've been taking credit for financial contributions you didn't make, that affects our entire marriage and family budget planning." Her statement reminded everyone that Derek's deception had implications beyond my family's treatment, potentially affecting their own financial integrity and planning assumptions. The front door opened unexpectedly, interrupting our family confrontation with the arrival of Uncle Frank, Patricia's younger brother, who had apparently decided to make an impromptu Sunday visit. "Hello, everyone," Frank announced cheerfully as he entered the dining room, immediately sensing the emotional tension and awkward silence that greeted his arrival. Patricia's face showed panic as she realized Frank's presence would complicate damage control efforts and potentially expose family financial arrangements to additional scrutiny. "Frank, this isn't really a good time for visiting," she said nervously, attempting to encourage his departure before he learned about our family conflict. Frank ignored Patricia's subtle dismissal and settled comfortably into an available chair, his relaxed demeanor contrasting sharply with everyone else's emotional intensity. "Actually, Frank's timing is perfect," I said, recognizing an opportunity to introduce objective family perspective into our resolution discussions. Derek shot me a warning glare, clearly uncomfortable with expanding our family conflict to include additional witnesses and potential consequences. Frank looked around the table with growing curiosity about the obvious tension and emotional aftermath he had interrupted. "Did I miss something important? Everyone looks like they've been having serious family discussions," Amanda answered, before anyone else could attempt deflection or damage control. Frank, we've been discussing family financial arrangements and inclusion practices that need some serious attention. Her willingness to involve Frank in our family conflict suggested that she was prioritizing honesty and accountability over protecting Derek from embarrassment or consequences. Patricia attempted damage control through minimization. Frank, we've just been having minor family discussions about communication and social planning. Nothing that requires outside intervention or concern. Actually, Patricia, we've been discussing systematic financial misrepresentation and family exclusion patterns. I corrected, firmly unwilling to allow continued minimization of serious issues. Frank's expression shifted from casual curiosity to serious concern as he realized our family conflict involved significant financial and ethical issues, rather than minor social disagreements. Financial misrepresentation, he repeated slowly. Billy, are you talking about family support arrangements or something more serious? Derek attempted to interrupt before I could provide Frank with potentially damaging information about the scope of financial deception and family dynamics that had been revealed. Frank, Billy's been helping Mom with household expenses, and there's been some confusion about recognition and credit for various family contributions. Derek said, quickly attempting to frame the situation as minor misunderstanding rather than systematic fraud. Frank looked directly at me, his expression indicating that Derek's explanation didn't adequately account for the emotional intensity and family tension he was observing. Billy, what's your perspective on these family financial arrangements and confusion issues? Frank asked, giving me an opportunity to provide accurate information about our situation. The moment had arrived to decide whether Frank's involvement would help facilitate family healing or simply expand the scope of conflict and consequences for everyone involved. Frank's direct question provided the perfect opportunity to introduce objective family perspective into our conflict resolution, and I decided that transparency would serve everyone's long-term interests better than continued deception or damage control. Frank, I've been paying Mom's entire mortgage for 3 years, while Derek has been taking credit for those payments. I said, clearly meeting his eyes directly. We've also been systematically excluded from family gatherings, celebrations, and photos despite providing the primary financial support for this household. Frank's expression shifted from curiosity to shocked disbelief as he processed the magnitude of financial and social deception I was describing. Billy, are you talking about $1,500 monthly payments for 3 years? $54,000 in mortgage payments alone, plus wedding costs, holiday expenses, and emergency repairs. I confirmed, pulling out my phone to show banking records if necessary. Derek immediately attempted damage control, with Frank recognizing that his uncle's opinion carried significant weight within the extended family network. Frank, the financial arrangements are more complicated than Billy's making them sound, Derek said defensively. I've been providing other types of family support that don't show up in banking records. Frank turned his attention to Derek with an expression that suggested he was evaluating the credibility of competing family narratives. Derek, what specific types of family support are you talking about? Amanda answered, before Derek could formulate another evasive response. Frank, Derek has been allowing Patricia to believe he was providing financial contributions that actually came from Billy's bank account. Her willingness to contradict her own husband in front of extended family demonstrated how seriously Derek's deception had damaged their marital trust and credibility. Patricia attempted to minimize the situation through Frank, hoping his brotherly concern might generate sympathy for her position. Frank, this whole situation has been blown completely out of proportion. We're talking about family miscommunication, not criminal fraud or financial abuse. Frank looked around the table with growing understanding of the family dynamics that had created such intense emotional conflict and potential legal consequences. Patricia, if Derek has been taking credit for financial contributions he didn't make, especially in amounts totaling tens of thousands of dollars, that's not miscommunication, Frank said firmly. That's systematic deception with serious consequences for family relationships. Tommy had been listening quietly to Frank's arrival and involvement in our family conflict, his young mind processing the introduction of an adult voice that seemed to understand fairness and honesty. "Uncle Frank," Tommy said quietly, "we weren't in any family pictures, even though Dad helps Grandma with money." His innocent observation provided Frank with immediate understanding of the systematic exclusion that had accompanied Derek's financial deception and credit claiming. Frank's expression hardened as he realized the scope of family mistreatment that Tommy and I had endured, despite our loyalty and financial contributions. "Tommy, that's not fair treatment from family members who should appreciate your dad's generosity and include you in family activities," Frank said gently, his grandfather instincts responding to Tommy's confusion and hurt. Patricia began crying again as she realized that Frank's objective perspective was supporting my position rather than generating sympathy for her maternal victim narrative. Derek's panic increased as he understood that Frank's involvement was expanding the family consequences of his deception beyond immediate legal and marital jeopardy. "Yeah, Frank, I'm willing to acknowledge mistakes and work toward better family dynamics going forward," Derek said, desperately attempting to salvage his reputation within the extended family network. Frank nodded approvingly at Derek's willingness to acknowledge wrongdoing, but his expression indicated that accountability required more than verbal admissions of past mistakes. Derek acknowledging mistakes is important, but Billy deserves concrete action that addresses both the financial misrepresentation and the family exclusion patterns, Frank replied firmly. Amanda supported Frank's position with her own demands for accountability. "Derek, your family needs to see immediate changes in behavior, not just promises about future improvement." The combination of legal leverage, marital pressure, and extended family scrutiny had completely shifted the power dynamic in my favor, providing multiple sources of accountability for ensuring genuine changes in family treatment. Tommy looked up at me hopefully. "Dad, does this mean Uncle Frank thinks we should be in family pictures too?" His question prompted Frank to respond with immediate grandfather warmth and inclusive family values. "Tommy, absolutely you and your dad should be in all family pictures and invited to all family gatherings. You're important family members who deserve recognition and inclusion." Frank's clear statement of family values provided the external validation that Tommy and I had been seeking for 3 years, confirming that our treatment had been inappropriately exclusionary. Patricia finally abandoned her defensive manipulation tactics and addressed Tommy directly with genuine grandmother affection. "Tommy, sweetheart, Uncle Frank is absolutely right. You and your daddy are important family members, and I'm sorry we didn't include you properly in family activities." Derek nodded in agreement, his earlier defensiveness replaced with what appeared to be genuine recognition of the harm his behavior had caused. "Tommy, I want you to know that I'm proud of your dad for everything he's done to support our family," Derek said, making direct eye contact with me for the first time since our confrontation began. "Billy, I'm sorry for taking credit for your financial contributions, and I'm sorry for supporting family dynamics that excluded you and Tommy." The apologies felt more genuine than earlier attempts at damage control, possibly because they were being made in front of Frank, whose opinion carried weight within the extended family network. Frank took control of the resolution process with practical grandfather authority. "Billy, what specific changes would you need to see to feel confident about continued family involvement and financial arrangements?" His question provided an opportunity to establish concrete accountability measures that would prevent future deception and exclusion while allowing family relationships to heal. "Frank, I need honest acknowledgement of financial contributions, inclusion in all family activities and photos, and either immediate partial repayment or formal documentation of the financial arrangements going forward." I answered clearly. Derek exchanged glances with Amanda before responding. "Billy, we don't have $20,000 available for immediate repayment, but we can commit to monthly contributions going forward and complete transparency about family financial arrangements." Amanda nodded in agreement with Derek's offer. Billy, I want you to know that Derek will be contributing equally to Patricia's household expenses starting next month, and we'll make sure extended family understands the accurate financial history. Frank supported their commitment with his own accountability measures. Billy, I'll help monitor family inclusion practices and ensure that Tommy and you are invited to all family gatherings going forward. Patricia wiped her tears and made her own commitment to behavior change. Billy, I want Tommy's photo prominently displayed on the family wall immediately, and I promise to include you both in all future family celebrations and activities. The combination of apologies, commitments, and external accountability created a foundation for genuine family healing, rather than continued conflict and legal consequences. Tommy's excitement about being included in family photos was infectious, reminding everyone that family relationships should create joy rather than conflict and exclusion. "Dad, can we take our picture for the family wall right now?" Tommy asked hopefully, his 7-year-old enthusiasm focusing everyone's attention on positive next steps rather than past grievances. Frank immediately supported Tommy's suggestion. "Tommy, that's a wonderful idea. Let's get that camera and add your family to the wall where you belong." Patricia stood up from the table with renewed energy, apparently relieved to focus on inclusive family actions rather than defensive explanations of past exclusions. "Tommy, let's find the perfect spot on the family wall for your picture with your daddy," she said warmly, her grandmother instincts finally aligning with appropriate family values. Derek also stood up, offering to help with the photo session and family wall rearrangement. "Billy, I'd like to help display your photo prominently and explain the accurate financial history to any family members who ask about household arrangements." Amanda smiled at Tommy's enthusiasm, her own relief apparent as family conflict transformed into family healing and inclusion. 3 months later, our family dynamics had transformed completely. Derek now contributes equally to Patricia's household expenses while acknowledging my historical financial support to extended family members. Tommy's photo occupies a prominent position on the family wall, and we receive invitations to all family gatherings and celebrations. The legal leverage provided by Marcus's analysis proved unnecessary, as family accountability and external pressure from Frank created sustainable behavior change without court proceedings or formal financial recovery actions. Tommy now enjoys genuine relationships with his cousins, aunts, uncles, and grandmother without the emotional baggage of exclusion and financial manipulation that had characterized our family dynamics for years. Most importantly, I learned that demanding respect and fair treatment from family members doesn't destroy relationships when approached with firm boundaries and clear expectations. True family love includes mutual appreciation, honest communication, and inclusive recognition of all members' contributions. The experience taught me that financial generosity without boundaries can enable manipulative behavior, but requiring accountability and respect creates healthier family dynamics for everyone involved. When you demand the treatment you deserve, you often discover who truly values your presence versus who merely exploits your willingness to provide support without recognition. Tommy learned valuable lessons about standing up for fairness, the importance of honesty in relationships, and the difference between family members who truly care about your well-being versus those who take advantage of your loyalty and generosity. Our family relationships are now built on mutual respect, transparent communication, and genuine appreciation for everyone's contributions rather than systematic exclusion and financial manipulation disguised as family tradition. What experiences have you had with family members who took advantage of your generosity without providing the recognition or inclusion you deserved? Have you ever had to set firm boundaries with relatives who expected financial support while excluding you from family activities or celebrations? I'd love to hear your stories and thoughts about balancing family loyalty with self-respect in the comments below. Thank you for listening to this story about standing up for fair treatment and demanding the respect that every family member deserves. Remember that healthy relationships require mutual appreciation and honest communication from all parties involved. If this story resonated with your own family experiences, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more stories about overcoming family challenges and building stronger relationships. Share this story with anyone who might benefit from hearing about the importance of setting boundaries and demanding fair treatment from people who should value your contributions. Until next time, remember that you deserve to be treated with respect and appreciation by the people you love and support, and never be afraid to stand up for the recognition you've earned through your loyalty and generosity.